Okay, let's talk about that little device you carry around everywhere. You know, the one you probably just checked a second ago. We all feel a little bit guilty, right, about how much time we spend staring at it. But what if I told you that feeling of being hooked isn't really your fault? Let's get into it.
So let me just throw a number at you. 96. That is how many times, on average, a person unlocks their phone every single day. That's about once every 10 minutes that we're awake. It's almost like a nervous tick, this constant reflexive check well, for what exactly?
So this really begs the question, are we all just collectively failing at self-control? Is this a massive global lack of willpower, or is there something else going on here? Is our relationship with our phones an accident, or is it the result of a very deliberate, very carefully engineered system?
To figure that out, we have to look behind the screen, at the actual psychological blueprint. See, this isn't really about cool technology. It's about behavioral psychology. The apps that we use every single day are built on this incredibly deep understanding of how our brains work, and maybe more importantly, how our brains get hooked.
It really all kicks off with a chemical you've definitely heard of, dopamine. But here's the thing that most people get wrong. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. It's the anticipation chemical. Your brain doesn't release it when you get the reward. It releases it when you think you might get a reward. It's the engine of seeking, the little itch in your brain that says, go look for something, or, keep scrolling. And this is how they weaponize that dopamine system. This right here, it's the exact same psychological principle that makes slot machines in a casino so unbelievably addictive. When you pull down to refresh your social media feed, you are literally pulling the lever on a digital slot machine. You have no idea if the next post is going to be boring, or kind of funny, or that one amazing video that makes your day. It's that unpredictability, that variable reward, that makes the action so compulsive and so hard to stop. So, how do designers actually put this into practice? Well, they're not just guessing. They use proven formulas. And one of the most famous is the fog behavior model. Honestly, you can think of it like a recipe for creating a habit. It's incredibly simple and powerful. For any behavior to happen, you just need 3 things to happen at the exact same moment: motivation, ability, and a prompt. Let's break that down real quick. Motivation is the why. We're talking about deep human drives, like the fear of missing out or our need to feel connected and accepted. Ability is the how easy. And designers are absolute masters at making things easy, at reducing friction so that an action takes almost zero conscious thought, what they call brain cycles. And finally, you've got the prompt. That's the when. It could be something external like that little red dot on an icon, or, and this is the really powerful one, it can be internal, that feeling of boredom or loneliness or anxiety. When those 3 things hit at the same time, boom, the behavior happens almost automatically. And we have to be really clear about what this is. As Nir Eyal, who's an expert in this stuff, puts it, this is a form of manipulation. It's about designing a system to get users to do what the company wants them to do. So the bottom line is, these apps we're using, they are not neutral tools. Okay, so that's the theory, that's the blueprint. Now, let's move on and see how this stuff actually shows up in the apps we're using every single day. Because this isn't just an abstract idea, it is baked into the code and the user interface of our digital world. And that brings us to this key term you really need to know, dark patterns. Super important. These are not bugs. They're not mistakes. They are intentional design choices made to trick you or steer you into doing things you probably didn't intend to do, like signing up for a subscription you didn't want or sharing way more personal data than you realized. And what's so wild is how these dark patterns map directly onto our own cognitive biases. Fake scarcity? That preys on your fear of missing out. Forced continuity? That uses our tendency to just stick with the default option. Confirm shaming? You've seen those messages that make you feel bad for saying no, right? And visual interference is just making the button they want you to click big and bright and the one you're looking for tiny and gray. I guarantee you've run into all of these this week. And these tricks are combined with features that are engineered to be completely, utterly frictionless. Infinite scroll gets rid of that natural moment where you'd pause at the bottom of a page. Push notifications are those external triggers that pull you right back in. And something like one-click checkout, it's designed to remove any chance for a second thought, completely bypassing that reflective part of your mind.
All right, so right about now, you might be thinking, okay, I get it, but this stuff doesn't really work on me. I'm aware of these tricks. Well, the crazy thing about this whole system is that it's designed to be effective even on people who think they're immune to it.
Yeah, there's actually a name for this. Researchers call it dark pattern blindness because these manipulative tricks are everywhere and they're all mixed in with normal marketing. Our brains just sort of get used to them. We start to normalize them and just accept them as how the internet works. They literally become invisible to us. Because here's the absolute core of it all. The whole goal is to get you to act without thinking. By making every action effortless, automatic, and frictionless, these designs are engineered to bypass your slower, more rational brain. They are built for impulse, not for reflection. And the stakes here are really high. The philosopher Ian Bogost has this really powerful quote where he warns that these persuasive technologies we carry in our pockets could be the cigarette of our century. It's a shocking comparison, but it really highlights the potentially addictive and harmful nature of what we're talking about. So, what are we supposed to do about all this? It can feel a little hopeless, but it's not. This isn't about giving up and tossing your phone in a river. The real solution starts with simply understanding how the game is played. Because this knowledge, it's the first step toward reclaiming your focus and your time. Yeah, this is not about deprivation. It's about empowerment. Once you can actually see the architecture of compulsion all around you, you can start to consciously and intentionally redesign your own digital life so that it serves your goals, not the goals of some algorithm. So the key is to reintroduce the very thing that designers worked so hard to eliminate, friction. Let's call it positive friction. Every one of these steps creates a tiny little pause, a space for your conscious brain to catch up and ask, wait, is this what I actually want to be doing right now? Turn off notifications? You just cut the prompts. Add a passcode? You just built a small wall. Move those apps off your home screen? Now you have to consciously go looking for them. It's all about making the mindless path just a little bit harder. And that really brings us to the final takeaway here. Every single time you pick up your phone, it feels like your choice. Your thumb moves, your eyes follow the screen. But after seeing everything we've just talked about, it's worth asking if it really is your choice. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. Who really controls your scroll?